Welcome back to the business research class. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you a very important uh, research cycle, which is linking theory and data. Really, research is nothing about, it's all about theory and data. Theory demonstrates that we know something about the data, and that data got the evidences. So research is really about putting evidences into perspective, which is called theory, that you can explain, that you can know the details and the descriptive profiles, the situations, the dynamics, the characteristics, and things, factors that involve in the data, in the evidences, so that you can explain them. And the more you can explain them, the more you can predict, control in the sense that you know which are the factors and variables that are involved in that particular situation, such as what makes a business having a competitive advantages, or what makes a business having good performance. And so you can, if you can explain those, what makes that business the way they are in terms of having some competitive advantage or performances, that means you can uh, provide some investments and control, right, on all those variables and factors that can ensuring the performances of the organization. And that is what theory is, it's all about. And so theory, in the sense, it really identifies the situations, explainable patterns, behaviors that can help you explain the situations, which is where data is. And so therefore, research is really about the iteration between theory and data. You can start from theory if you have already some reasonable control and reasonable understandings of the theories, or you can borrow from some other disciplinary subjects. And for example, if you want to study tourisms, maybe you can, relating to cultural tourisms, or cultural heritage and things like that, maybe you can borrow some theory from anthropologies, or cultural perspective of the in sociologies and things like that, and from there you can uh, infer and to use it, right, for your own situation, for the tourism study. And that is what the theory is, it's all about. So it means that our research is iterations, and we accumulate continuously on knowledge about the situation. And because of the relationship between theory and data, so it is really your choice, right? Researcher's choice about, do you want to start with theory, or you want to start with data? Theory comes from knowledge, literature reviews, okay? And so do you want to start from that, or you want to start from data? If you, either way, you can, if you think that, if you feel that you have a strong understanding and knowledge background, you can start with the theory and move deductively towards the data. So, and the process would involve you to first understand the the theory, the theoretical shape, the theoretical concepts, the framework that you think are better suitable to explain the empirical world, which is the data. And so in a sense that it's in, which means you already know sort of the interrelationship and the types of variables involved. And your job, therefore, is to ensure a very appropriate conceptualizations of all those variables and factors, right? And ensuring that the overall conceptual framework are able to meet your expectation, to explain the empirical situation. And from there, you need to obtain some evidences that the theories are really working, and if not working, in what sense it is not working, so that they can better refine the theory and get a better grip of the situation. That involved operationalization. So once you have proper conceptualizations, then you can operationalize it in how you can measure it, right? How we have already talked about it. Uh, these conceptualizations and operationalizations. For instance, if you want to uh, measure how competent you are in bowling, so you have to really understand the conceptually what does it mean by a competent bowling skills, and how do you know that the person has that competencies, and that is called operationalization. So deduction is basically moving from conceptualizations to operationalizations, and most of this situation is theory testing a theory. So because you already know, and through theory testings you can modify the theory and build some additional theory. That is no problem, because the research is accumulatively getting a better understanding on the situation. And most of the quantitative research based on this situation. That does not mean that everything is already formed into shape of theory. No, theories can be creatively combined, and it can be deduced, can be inferred, and so there are a lot of hypothetical situations involved in the creativity of the theory. So again, that doesn't mean things are already fixated, right? So it is still depends on your knowledge. Once that is happening, then you can move from theory to data. On the other hand, you can start from the data to the theoretical frame domains. So you start work directly. For example, last couple of times we talked about grounded theory approach, which is really nothing but moving from completely well, almost from the data ground to forms and to build the theory. So we have to really uh, observe it and analyze, look at the data, attempts to find the data, and try to operationalize, be able to interpret the data and slowly move the empirical operationalizations domains of the data that we collect from in-depth interviews or observations towards forming some abstract concept. Because of the abstract concept conceptualization, things are slowly moving from the data world to the empirical to the theoretical world, and so most of the quantitative research are in that domain. Okay, but that again does not mean that most quantitative research is not in that domain. You still can experiment on your data, and then look into the and then look into the look into the situation, and then we will be able to identify the theory. Okay, so we will look into the details. Okay, step by steps. I will probably focus on the qualitative, and then moving qualitative on the yellows, and then slowly moving into telling you the quantitative research methods. So you slowly already understands the process of both quantitative and qualitative, especially that I have gone through grounded theory, which is almost the most important methodologies in qualitative, starting from how you collect the data, and then you analyze the data through thematic analysis of the data scripts, and then from there you slowly uh, identify the couple of themes or couple of variables, and then accumulate aggregate those variables into some relevant variables to your research objective and purpose, And then from there, you slowly interlinks, actually link to your key topics of your research. And then from there, you can forms a theoretical shape and then moving into the selective coding. And so these are very important. And the quantitatives, it's very much has been discussed, which in the sense that you have to uh, provide a good definitions and then question and designs and things like that. So we are from the qualitatives, we are moving from the what and the fact of the data to towards the towards those concepts. Okay, why this happens? I know what kind of ideas are being involved in this in these data scripts in the observation. What kind of possible theories of that we can extract out, and what kind of factors or variables that we can explore. I mean, we can extract from the data scripts. And so this kind of slowly moving from the fact, empirical fact, and what to a more meaningful situation, and that is what we mean by operationalizations. And then slowly we can get into the ensuring that every operationalizations, the construct that come into the pictures, that we get into a valid, reliable concepts, so that we can align and match with the interlink with the literature reviews. And that is where conceptualizations comes into the pictures. And so in a sense, because an example for the data to theoretical qualitative research, you can observe data and interviews all those data, and these are the empirical observations that you found. Okay, for example, we find that many workers confront a poor man together, right, in a collective sense. So many workers are confronting some ones on top of them, on a job sense, role sense, and in a collective sense together. So in a unity sense, to defend for that particular worker. So you kind of see some shape, right, forming, and I mean collective unity shape forming for helping their own the teams, and so some solidarities, cohesive of teams coming into the picture. And many you also observe, and many makes the statements about sticking up for one another's, again, right, each other's, all the different workers are really sticking up for each other's, and we are on we are this together, right? So it is creating we're seeing some kind of bondage, right? And this is where we start to form some shape of what we are looking for. And you have to move those slowly into some meaningful understanding and concepts and theory, and that is where you slowly progress from the empirical observation in view of the research objective, and slowly lifting up to the theoretical world, and that is where your operationalizations comes into the picture. And many express their loyalty to other factory workers and say that the managers are their enemies. So again, they're separating into two different groups. One is their own labor groups, and the other one is anyways the management groups or whatever, or supervisory group. So you and then slowly you kind of moving on to a more unified concepts that align with your with what you're looking for. And from these three, you can basically almost operate it to understand that the workers have shared feeling and had a strong sense of unity that is in oppositions to any ways the supervisory or managerial role. So that kind of situation is what you feel, what you conclude from all these three empirical statements, and then and you results in a consolidated understanding, and you can give it a concepts or give it a name. So you're slowly progressing from a very substantial details into some generalized, meaningful variables and concepts. And then from there, you give a name to the concept we call conceptualization. So, so we conceptualize by refining the working ideas and concepts through the operationalizations of our data and working ideas that forms the concepts, and we give that conceptualizations based on this operationalization, understanding, and definition, a name called cultures of solidarities. Okay, so we know on the one hand there is this solidarity, which is kind of behaving like an independence variable. Okay, and that cultures will of course from the evidences of the data will demonstrate that they are able to deliver some dependence variables. And let's see how that dependence variable is. And again, we identify that relationship. Of course, there is a relationship through the observation. And of course, we identify specifically the empirical domains and trying to attempt to understand what does it means. And so we've observed and found that many workers are willing to lose friends, suffer economic losses, so they're willing to sacrifice certain situation of their own and engage in just for the purpose of engaging in that solidarity cultures. So there's some action, some labor action in a way that is quite radical in that sense of losing friends and suffer economic losses just for the sake of being in that solidarity's togetherness, and get arrested for what they believe is a just cause. So believe that these are the just cause and they're fighting for just justification. And the justice cause involves defending workers' rights and intensely defending workers' rights and intensely opposing the actions of the supervisories and managers which are on the other sides of their concepts. Okay, so this kind of situations really, in view of these overall meanings and your research objective, it really tells that the workers make some personal sacrifices and engage in extreme collective social political activity and action to advance, justify a just cause that they think is just, of course, and through the consolidarity cultures of their own groups. So they again, they are doing something about, they are performing some radical labor action. So that radical labor action is directly attributable relating to cultures of solidarities. Okay, and that independence variable and dependence variables forms a shape interlinks with each other. So that is how we move from qualitative data to conceptual extract variables, or we call construct. If you feel that these are to some extent to construct based on your operationalized concept, and so we call that variable construct. And this is where qualitative research is all about. So qualitative research, first of all, you have to involve with very rich details of the interview scripts. And that means that you have to spend a period of time, maybe a couple of hours and maybe a couple of days, many times talking to the same groups of peoples, and that is observation, ethnography, or grounded theory in the sense of data analysis, and the case in the sense of looking at different cases to find the situation. So if you turn this into case study, case research, you could probably be looking into different cases of factory. Okay, and see whether different cases of factories, different types of factories, or different locations of factories, or different scenarios of the factories, or different working environments of the factories, or different economic environments of the factory, I mean of the businesses where the factory is located, that really also tell the same story. And that is called case study. So you can have single case, which is in depth to find out some shape and information, and you could have multiple cases in a way of looking into similar patterns and the similar patterns, and if that is so, why is that so? And again, all these are just nothing but based on the similar data analysis and data to theory structure. So I hope that based on this model, and you should already have understood what exactly is involved in qualitative research. And again, one of the very important learning technique and learning competency is through extrapolation or analogy. So if I have already, which is our training in mathematics, if you have trained mathematics since the very beginning of your high school, I mean, primary schools to high schools to universities, maybe sharing, have gone through a lot of calculus, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then some advanced numerical in finite analysis, it would not be very difficult to uh, sense what I'm expecting to tell you, or what you should learn about quantitative analysis, which is really nothing just like mathematics. Calculus or linear algebra to a more advanced level. And they're all basically the same. So you can reverse it, it's all the same ideas. So, and again, before literature review ideas, sorry, it was interrupted. And so back to this data theory or theory data iteration. It is not difficult to see the iterative process. So of this theory data cycles. It is not necessary that we start from a very comprehensive literature review. You can start from some preliminary literature reviews, and if you're willing to sacrifice your time, you can collect some data based on your preliminary understanding, and then make sense of your data and organize your data like what I have just told you in qualitative sense, and or you can do it in quantitative sense, like questionnaire designs and collect some data, making sense of it, and organize the data, and slowly find the gaps, and then train yourselves iteratively. So it is not looking for perfect, but looking for training ground. So you can from there you understand some shape. And then back again, you get grounds are rooted, right? And so this is a very important concept. And so language that we have just explained the theory, data theory, whether it's conceptualizations to operationalizations to conceptualizations, really is nothing but iterative interaction engagements between the language of theory and the language of empirical data world. So the language of theory, it's on the one hand, it's full of abstract concepts, assumptions and relationships, definitions, causalities, X causes Y, X induces Y, X is related to Y, or X behaves in a way that can also increases the Y, or whatever, or through mediators or through moderators we have discussed already. And those are all language of theory. And when we move, when we understand those language of theory, and then the next thing is that we want to understands how the data will really reflect the the empirical data what really reflects the theoretical situations, and we can uh, look into those collect the data and understandings them, and the language of the empirical measures are describing how people concretely measure specific variables and refer to specific operations or things that people use to indicate the presence of constructs that exist in observable reality, in the sense that you really have to become more concrete and not abstract form. You really have to demonstrate some evidences and measurements, that's concrete measurements that you can measure that you can so for example, if you feel that there is some solidarities of the team situation, what does it mean by solidarities? Can you see from in any ways of the behaviors or the dynamics or the situations that demonstrates and behave solidarities and things like that? Okay, that is called concrete measures of measurements of specific variables that is also observable in that data realities. And so if we are from the quantitative, we have already understood some theoretical formats, and so we kind of know the relationship, the hypothetical relationship between independent variable and dependent variable. So, and we know the exact concepts of the variables, each of the variables involved. So we start from some things that is known, although it is at the extracts level. It is the reasons why it is at the extract level on the social sense, social psychological, philosophical sense, is because it is more generalizable. Something that is abstract can be generalized to every kind of different kind of applications, and that generalizations is at the extract form. And so these understandings of the theoretical concepts of independent variable playing a role influencing dependent variable with a valid and real understandings of the abstract of that construct. Next thing is that we have to, by really truly understanding the concepts of each of the construct and the overall theoretical shape, we then can put a concise definition, right? A conceptual, we can put a concise definition for each of the variable, and based on that concise definitions, we can operationalize the design questionnaire or whatever, that we can have a specific measurements of that. And that specific measurements will give us some values of what is happening in that particular variable, and that is called indicators. So, for example, we have customers satisfaction, and then we know that customer satisfactions will be divided in through conceptualizations. Will divided in blah 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 blah, like satisfactions of customers means that it is meeting the expectations of their needs or requirements or whatever. And based on that, our questionnaire operationalizations will say that to what degree. For example, the indicators would be one means completely or totally disagree with the statements, and then to disagree, to three neutral, and then two agree, and completely agree or strongly agree in that sense in the indicators one. And from there you can then forms the operationalizations questionnaire in a way that the product and services that met my expectation. Well, if you strongly disagree with that, you give indicators of one, and if you strongly agree with it, you put a 5 on there, and then otherwise you probably neutral, you put a 3, and that is where indicators comes into the picture. So these are numerical indicators where we can go to statistical treatment. But in the end of your analysis is to be able to tell the degree and the level of that indicators indicating how the customers really satisfy in the sense of meeting the expectation. There are a lot of others theoretical definitions on satisfaction, which is may not behave in a way of meeting the expectations, maybe more into value proposition types of directions. And so you have to really be careful on that. So we are moving from qualitative and quantitative are just similar thing, but one is moving from the empirical level to the level of theory, and for this quantitative deduction, it's moved from the level of theory to operational level, through the operational level to the empirical level. So in a sense, we need to involve with data. The more we understand the data, the more we understand what is going on in our research journey, and that we can be successful in the research journey. That depends on the data. And so what do we mean by data? Data really is nothing but we can obtain the data from our 6 senses plus some devices, and now with the technology, the devices are moving towards more uh, internet of things can help us to get easily all kind of data, and big data, and generate a lot of big data, and some of the data may be a little bit more information data in the sense of artificial intelligence data that have already filtered through artificial intelligence. And whichever the case, we have actually we have the 6 senses, 5 senses plus one more, which is the thinking senses. Okay, and the sense of our logics, the sense of intellectual senses. So we have the sense of smell. You should in some active aid noise reduction facilities, or in semiconductors area, or some high tech, or the military weaponry discipline. Sense of hearing you should also master, and sense of sight, and so on and so forth. Okay, so all these are very much important details, plus things that we cannot measure. You need to obtain from devices, such as if you want to measure the viscosity, or the stress of the fluid, which is equal to the mu viscosities times the partial derivative of the velocity, partial your distances, and that or the thermal conductivities. You would need devices, okay, sensors and things like that. So we use that 6 sensors plus the devices, and again, questionnaire is just one of the devices, okay, but the questionnaire is a simple social psychological devices where we put things in on a piece of paper. So we instead of saying, we put on a paper. So it's really nothing different. There's no difference between what you by the talking and the questionnaire, right? It's just a different form. So but anyway, it is just what we mean by device. Okay, and in engineering is what we mean by sensors and all these equipment, and they generate a whole bunch of data. Okay, so now we already have understandings on the data, and on the theory, data iteration, qualitative methodologies, quantitative methodologies, deduction, induction, grounded theories we have already briefly gone through. So therefore, I assume you already can start working on your research. Okay, so from now onward, if you are in my class, I would expect that you are already able to start working on your thesis and on your research. The last things before you can be sharper in helping you to operate your research process. I mean, research is just like a product and services, right? If you want to operate it to the quality, very important, you need to meet the expectations of your customers, and that is the research purpose. So you have to get your, excuse me, you have to get your research purpose uh, accurately stated, so that when people read your article, they know that you're moving towards that purposeful direction, and they know that you have met the purpose, and you yourselves know how to what you need to do in order to meet the purpose, and if not, why so. Why so, it's also has a lot of contribution. Okay, and because the purpose is justified based on our preliminary, based on our previous judgment and justification, and maybe we were wrong, and that's why we set that kind of purpose. So we realize that there are some flaws, some deficiencies, or some weaknesses in our purpose. So therefore, it may be better. You can better improve your research purpose. So research really is nothing but a continuous process of getting better and better in your ability to project and reveal truthfulness, right? So your validities will improve more as time goes on. Your reliabilities of your way of doing your research will improve as times move on. Okay, so do not need to so worried about, you are getting a C, or getting a D, or getting an F, if, or I mean, there's no F maybe, but it is all about, do you really make a progress? At the end of the day, we look at your thesis completion. So but unfortunately, in your undergraduate, there is certain grading systems that just give you some judgment on that cross-sectional basis, but actually you already have improved step by step. So which is okay, right? Our proficiencies and capability is based on proven as time goes on, proven our proficiencies. And the way to understand the purpose, I'm just giving you a very important, concise understanding, and from there, basically you can move on by yourself. Okay, even though I have a lot of dark details and illustration and many examples of the research purpose statements in those slides, but you can read it by yourself. So research is not only from lectures or me as a coach, but is you yourself have to play a role, self working on it, right? So I'm just keep guiding you to ensure that you are in the right direction, that you understand the overall picture. So one way of looking into the research problem, to come up with a research problems, research of statement, objective, purpose, based on whichever problems you're solving. After the research problems comes into your purpose, so that you can get a clarifications of way and how you're going to do it. And there are you can separate into two domains. One of them is informations gathering. Really, you just nothing but just trying to gather some information. So you can see a lot of research, really nothing but informations gathering, such as to explore certain things, but which is good. Well, if you go into literature review, you will know that many research articles are exploring for insights, exploring for new understanding, exploring for possible, for theoretical groundwork, which is good. Okay, so information has many different levels. So this information exploring into the frontiers of the theoretical concepts and understanding, which is strongly powerful, which is very good. But if you are moving into exploring for a simple empirical understanding and descriptive understandings of the group, maybe more practical, but to help you earn money, such as market segmentation, but it doesn't really help you theoretically, unless you can explain the exploring and explain the shape of the segments that really that really categorically to making some theoretical sense. Okay, and that is very powerful. Okay, so anyway, information is describing, exploring things, and theory, testings, and building. You have two roles. One is I have already explained it, the theory data iterations, whether you theory to data on the theory testings, can also build theory, but majority theory testing, and then data to the theory in the sense of theory building. Again, you can be also theory testing. Okay, so it's not necessary in that direction, it's predominantly in that direction. And from and the more you iterate in that direction, the more you can explain and predict things. So it is not necessary that the theory, a given shape of theory can already help you explain. It does able to help you to explain, but without the information of these descriptive natures, you are not able to explain also the theory, because the application of the theory has certain boundary which depends on information such as descriptive and how you explore for the context and boundary. So these two are actually overlinking each other. They are not separating from one another. On the other hand, like a continuance. That information is that directions and theory is that direction. There are certain interacting and overlapping issue. Okay, and so our research therefore is trying to make use of information gathering and theory testing, and can be simultaneously, not necessarily separating, simultaneously, and forming a theoretical, forming a research purpose. Okay, and each of the area has different words describing what does it mean by exploring, identify, describes, compare, evaluate, determine the cause, or blah, blah, blah. There are so many other things. And that is where we can use those verbs to help us form a problem statement, right? And as you move slowly, as I say, that research is iterative process. As you move from your stage of effort today to maybe in another 2 years' time, you will see yourself moving, explore, to describe, to explain, to predict. And as you move on, more information and knowledge are required also to help you activate and able to the activities to happen. So the more you want to predict things, you have to justify it. What are the control variables, and is there any alternative way or that will make your explanations not valid? And if so, then you are not able to predict with 100% certainty, and therefore there are certain uncertainty which is due to your complexities or due to your ambiguity, not able to understand the situation. So as you move on from one end to another end, the information's level and the knowledge levels goes up tremendously. And so it's not only statistical simplicities and complexities along from exploration to prediction. It is all about theoretical understandings and empirical richness. Okay, so in a sense, we have to select some samples so that we can collect some data to help us get into the domains of information gathering and theory testings and building. And to do that, we have to identify the population so we can choose, select the appropriate samples from the populations of where it governs and in alignments with the overall context of our research. And within that populations, we have to really reason out. Are we looking at the populations of individuals, such as individual characteristics, personalities, or group behaviors, or group, just like the cultures of consolidarity that we have just discussed on the employee level, or organization, businesses, or societies, things like that. And then once you move from the unit of analysis in identifications of the populations and where your samples are selected, data start to form and to serve, whether you want for exploratory or descriptive, depending on the natures of the contribution, the requirements of your research effort. you can use different words, right? Such as I want to understand, I want to exploratory doesn't mean it means that you are not able to kind of explain what's happening. You want to explore for why, is there any difference between genders? So you can compare the gender differences, right? Or is there, I want to explore because I kind of not really knowing that different cultures can provide some behavioral direction for corporate citizenship behavior, and so I really want to compare and see or what's happening across different cultures, maybe by using some cultural definitions or cultural concept and trying to help me illuminate the differences and things like that. So again, this is where uh, there are a lot of challenges, different types of work that depends on your literature review, the depth of literature review, the creativities of yourself, and the intellectual capability of you, the experience that you have accumulated in your industry, the training, academic training, and different verbs will comes into the picture. and and again, similar things for explanation. You want to explain in the sense to what degree that is there any mediations or moderations or some dependent independence variables or curvilinear relationships or whichever, and that really depends on your situation, and that will form the shape of the words of the verb. Okay. And when you select the samples based on the aligned populations, the meaningful populations that you want to involve in getting information gathering and theory testings, and the sample selections, really, there are two predominant domains of sampling. One is probabilistics domains, which involves, you already have studied in statistics, which we no need to probably go through. It's random sampling, so you have to know where is your populations and assign numbers to the population, and from there you can use your random tables to help you select which one comes first, so there is no bias on the random sampling selections, and that is called random. Everyone has a probability, equal probability to getting being selected for the choices. Otherwise, you can use systematics every 10 numbers you select one, every 10th number you select one, and or maybe you stratify randomly in the sense of there is certain group that you can. So the whole populations you can separate into different groups. So maybe the North group in Thailand, maybe the North, maybe the South, maybe the Northeast, and things like, because they share very different similar cultures. So you can stratify them or clusters them, and from there you can then you randomly sampling it. On non-probabilities, meanings that there is no worried about the randomness. So it is something that is a purpose that you have to choose based on your purpose, that your samples can answer your question. At the same time, convenience that they can allow you, give you the opportunity for interviews and samplings. Data collections, and or you give certain along that sampling convenience. You also can have certain quotas. So maybe interviews 50% males and 50% female, or you have to base on certain judgments that if I want to interview that 50% of female, and that 50% of female has to qualify certain criteria called judgment sampling or purposes sampling. Okay, so these are really nothing but the linkings of the population to the unit of analysis, the samples to the sample of the to the purpose statement. So you can see that the purpose statements, therefore, is really nothing but a sentence that can help you paint the overall pictures of this graph, of these pictures. Okay, so so if you understand the overall this picture map, schematic diagram, you can flexibly, creatively, and intellectually and to craft the statement. So I'm giving you a very simplistic holistic way of understanding how to write a problem. I mean the purpose statement. Okay, the purpose of the research. Okay, so and again, depending on these whether you're on this information side or theory or combinations, we get a lot of knowledge, and that knowledge can starting from the descriptive knowledge to some predictive and explanatory knowledge, and in between you can exploit them for practical improvement of your organizational of your management practices, of your ISO 9001 operations, of your productivity improvement, of your data physicals, ISO quants, productivity improvements, and things like that. So there are a lot of all kind of, this is only a few examples, simple example, aligned with the name, but there are many different types and knowledge you can map into this graph, and so that you know that your job is really through the research creating knowledge, and through the knowledge you hopefully becomes wise that you can apply them. Okay, so we already talked about it. We have this descriptive knowledge, results of research and describe social phenomena, which is the social form, social structure, social activity, social changes over time, social relationship, right? Predictive knowledge in the sense of predicting a phenomena, in the sense that what occurred because of X, that means X occurs earlier than Y. Improvement in the sense of ability to intervene and get control of the situation through the knowledge that you have acquired. Explanatory in the sense of your ability to understand the rationalities and why it happens and things like that, so that you can also predict and intervene. Okay, so these are the situations. So the purpose of statement indicates why you want to do the study. Okay, and so why you really need to study, it's already established in the purpose. And what you're going to do, is it to describe, or is to compare, or to identify and to explore in what sense, or to get into the nature, the relationship, and so the what you intend to accomplish, right? So maybe you want to study how these two interlink with these two variables interlink with each other in such a way that can help you improve the organizational performance. So the why of organizational performances that you really need to involve with the with all the what's, and so on and so forth. The purpose statement sets forth the intent of your study. Okay, they are not the problem. The problem is already happens in your beginning, and then it's slowly filtering through the problems, and then see how the situations of the problems and what really you need to solve, or what really you need to address in the problem. And so it is not the problem, but it is the reasons and the direction for clarifying the problem. Okay, and that forms the research purpose. So the purpose statement sets the objective, that your intention, your intent, your stretch goal, your ideas of what you want to study, and things like that. And that idea builds on, again, as I already told you, builds on the need, the problem, and slowly filter through meaningful understanding towards the direction that can help you address your particular issue. And so it kind of refined into the question, and you put into statements form. Okay, so I can straight away get into give you the simple structures on the problem statements, and from there you can slowly read the slide by yourself. So the purpose of this study is to the statement format you can write in this sense. The purpose of this study is to, followed by verb, okay, which is coming from information or the theory testing, theory building, or combinations of overlapping, and so on. So for be creative, okay, and this is only simple example. There are a lot of details of verbs, okay. Plus, because of the whole mapping, that also includes the population unit of analysis and context and situations. So you have to involve who is going to be research, what is going to be research, where the research phenomena is studied, and so on and so forth. Okay, that allow you to see the overall pictures from the sampling all the way to the final phenomena. Okay, so verbs come from the activity in these two territories or domain of research focus, which involve all these stakeholders. Okay, example, if you refer back to these titles of this article, evaluation of passengers buying behavior toward low-cost carrier, and the purpose of this paper is to blah 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 examine, okay, examine how so this how the attitudes and behavior affect. So really, it's more towards the explanation. But there is the explanation in the sense of overlapping with the exploratory how that not necessary that that the author has know what is going on and how it happens, or maybe there are a lot of others significant variables involved that induces or causes or moderate the attitudes and behaviors to play a more significant role. And so really this how can be exploring through literature reviews or exploring through ground theory, and really depends. But I think in this case it's a survey, so it's a quantitative research data. So even in this example, different approaches and you could use, and you could make it simple, you could make it very difficult, depending on your so a purpose is doesn't really indicate much, although it also reflects the directions of the research methods, but it really depends on how you present yourself, okay, and describe how you approach the in addressing the purpose, okay. Because for example, a company, I want to be a leaders, and everybody's, I want to be a leaders in the organizations, but or in the business or in the industries, but many people can, I mean, the same purpose, but different approaches. One would go through blue oceans, one would go through hybrid generic competitive advantages strategy, and another would go through a more logistics and convenience based, or maybe another's were more tactical in detail. So really depends on your results, right? Oh, to give you, so therefore, getting the right verb is very important. The verb implies what you're going to do with the research, whether on the information side, and also it also justifies the methodology, as I already just explained through the statements, right? You can use quantitative. You also can use qualitative. The purpose of this study is to describe some. For example, the purpose of this study is to describe something about some group. Then it really implies that you would probably try to give them a questionnaire and ask them to fill up, and or maybe also interviews also can do that, depends on what you're going to do, and so that you can describe the natures of is there any difference between or maybe between the different genders, or maybe males are more favorable to this types of product compared to the females and things like that. So you kind of trying to or describing things, right? Or maybe the males are more active in blah 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 blah, and that can only be determined from your research data collection. So if you say the purpose of this study is to compare group 1 and group 2's, or method 1 to method 2's, or program 1 to program 2, then it implies a little bit more complex in the study, because you have to collect two different groups, two different programs, two different methods, rather than just one particular situation. And then you have to make some statistical analysis and justify and analyze and see what's happening, okay, and things like that. If you say the purpose of this study is to evaluate this program, and then now it's even more complex, right? Because not only you are going to collect some sort of information about the program that might be complex in the first place, but also you're going to compare that information to some sort of some other criteria that have already been successful. And so therefore you can provide some evaluation and things like that. So again, depending on your research problem, the complexities and the data involved, the methodology that you're going to use, and the criteria that you're going to use, the literature review efforts will be also extensively different. Okay, If you say the purpose is to determine the cost of, and that is even more complex. So if you want to know, does this reading method teaching students to read in certain ways cause them to have a higher test score or better performance and better reading skill? Now that you imply that you're going to set up maybe some experimental study to see that maybe you separate into different groups and see, okay, these groups maybe they need to go through certain interactions among each other, so some engagement. Another group maybe more students to teacher engagement. That group is students to students engagement. Another group is with some supplementary reading material. Another group is online. Another group is offline. So by looking into various different combinations and detail, and then sorting out all these possible bias and control data, and then you can probably see really which programs and which methods it's really happening. It's more effective in things that are is effective across the different population. And thus, you have to select the right verbs in conclusions. The right verbs are very important, and think about what is that you intend to do, which is your research issue involved in your research problem, right? And this is what we mean by keywords and phrases. Also refer to the variables that we are going to study. So so I have already, in conclusion, already explained to you the general forms of sample problem statement, which is the purpose of this study is to blah, 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 with all the verbs and all the keywords and phrases, which you already have seen from the maps and schematic diagram. Okay, and then from there, you can also see what kind of methodological sequence it would follow. And in fact, every purpose may already have detect and instruct you for certain methodological direction. So you can, depending on whether you want qualitative or quantitative, you can change respectively on the actual verbs that you would like to do. And just to, in conclusion, so therefore, the purpose and the research methods are parallel to each other's, okay, and things like that. So for example, exploration, and again, doesn't mean that it is fixated, because it can creatively explore for different aligned, valid, reliable methodology. So exploration, for example, exploration to uncover areas for the research and theory developments, which I have already given a lot of example. And for example, your question is there something interesting enough to justify the research based on the purpose, and because of that, you have not really understood the situations properly. So therefore, you can use in-depth case studies or unfocused longitudinal field that you have to spend a longer time in the field and to understand what is really of interest to your research. And from there, you can explore some of the area that is suitable for research theory development. And from there, after 3-4 months, then you can finalize the research. So research is a iterative process, like what I have demonstrated to you. Preliminary literature review, it go to the iterative processes, and this is just what it means, right? So you can start from in-depth case studies and unfocused longitudinal field study, and slowly moving into theory, more consolidated theory buildings, and then maybe after that theory testing. So it's a mixed method. So you can have, as time progresses, sequentially, you could have mixed methods, right? And so this is where quantitative method, qualitative methods, or mixed quantitative, qualitative methods comes into the picture to help you deliver a problem. And you can do it sequentially, or you can do it simultaneously, depending on your objective. Okay, so for example, in theory building, identify and describe the keywords, and what you want to know, what are the variables, what are the patterns, and you can, because you have not know the patterns, so you can go through in-depth case studies or multiple case studies and things like that. If other than that, otherwise you probably can use population, or I mean the questionnaire design, if you already have confirmed the theoretical format of your situation. Okay, so this what we have studied, and the rest you can go through by yourself, Okay, you can read by yourself. That give you a lot of examples and many qualitative and quantitative purpose statements. You can read through by yourself as part of your self studies. Okay, and whatever you do, you eventually you probably need to especially in quantitative, we need to use the triangulation. So we need to to give a more valid understanding of the situation. So we triangulate against with the theory, different types of theory, different types of data, different types of method. As I already told you, the mixed methods will give you a better picture. Maybe interviews more people, different types of people. So in quantitative, you make sure that there is these triangulations situations that it will that you need to engage and give you a better reflections on of the physical of the reality of the situation, and then from there you can get a consolidated and a more valid understanding of the situation and things like that. So this again, it depends on your disciplines and the intellectual infrastructures of the disciplines. And of course, the intellectual infrastructures of disciplines still open to scrutiny, but you can exploit them for helping you to identify the theories and where you can collect your data. But again, depending on your research quantitative, for example, the qualitative purpose statement, maybe different types of methods and people that you need to involve slightly in a different way or diversified way that can help you deliver the data to be able to deliver the theory. Okay, and so this very important. And the way I say empirical and conceptual method, in the sense that we can explore the methods, we can get the data by means of empirical methods. So you have to go through some data collections, quantitative data collection, qualitative data collection, mixed data collection, or conceptuals, in the sense of you can go through some literature reviews methods to give you some rationalities and reasonings or patterns of behaviors to help you explore for some theory. So there are two approaches, but mostly we require all the students to have the empirical methods in order to get a better grip of the of the reality. Okay, so there are a lot of different types of situations. You just read it by yourself, and again, just different forms of the iteration. You can start from here, and then inductions. You can start from data inductions to form some theory, embody the knowledge, and from there you can revise the theoretical understanding and go to the questionnaire design deduction, and then test your theory. So you can have a grounded theory from here to here, and then you can have the theory testing from there to here, from the monitored knowledge to the evidences, things like that. And there are a lot of examples depending on your research methodologies and research paradigm. There are different approaches. So you can, for hermeneutics, this couple of example, because hermeneutics was it's about getting to it was originally concerns with interpreting ancient scriptures, but we can in order to understand the ancient script, you cannot look at only one sentence. You have to look at the overall pictures, overall scripts of the Bibles, overall scripts of the Tripitaka in Buddhist scripts, or whichever script, and then seeing the whole picture, seeing the overall text, then you are able to understand what is going on within that particular sentences and situations. So you have to see the context and see the overall situation. For instance, you have to see the historical and social context before you can understand why persons in that societies perform in that direction. And so different research epistemological paradigm positioning, different qualitative, different purpose statement, research purpose statement has to incorporate. And so this is additional skill that you have to build even though I have explained it that the research purpose is to blah, 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 very simple, but in the end of the day, it really depends on also the research paradigm. And this is probably the last importance lessons that I would need to reinforce again in this slide, okay, which is paradigmatic alignment in that research purpose statement. Okay, so again, the different types of epistemological processes, such as participatory inquiry methods, that would also need to be aligned with the with the statement, okay, and things like that. So you can read it by yourself. It's a lot of examples are here, which you can. So, and this is quantitative, independence, mediating, dependence, moderating variable, confounding variable, and control variable we have already discussed. And so you can really go through them, and it's a lot of pages, and these are all the example. The purpose of these, right, quantitative based on these points, quantitative purpose statement scripts. The purpose of this study is to what, to test a theory or that involved or that this explain the other ones, or with the controlling variables, or and then the dependent variables can be defined as, and the dependent variable, the conceptualization, right? So before you operationalize it, you need to conceptualize the definition. And mixed method, you can combine all this and becomes a mixed method, quality, quantitative, simultaneously, in sequence sense, in whatever sense or parallel sense. Okay, so this what we have done. So today we have covered very important sections, which is called the purpose statements, and I hope you have gained a lot of benefits. Okay,